Are you not getting straight A's or even straight B's? In this video, I'm going to give you guys hope if you've tried everything and you've just can't get the grades you want. Because there is hope, and I'm going to show how a lot of the wealthiest people in the world actually got poor grades in school. So let's get into it, and I'm going to share with you some data, some actual stats from a rigorous set of research done by the authors of one of the most famous books on wealth creation. The book is called The Millionaire Next Door, and they wrote a second book called The Millionaire Mind, which I suggest you read if you want more details. And it covers various stats through their research of thousands of millionaires. And one of the things they found is that the average GPA of these high net worth individuals is about 2.93, which is definitely not a 4.0 GPA. And so that introduces the whole topic, the whole principle of how grades don't necessarily equate to success in the real world. Sometimes they still do. The study also found that about 2% of millionaires actually did have, the top grades in the school and that 4.0 that people wanted, but only 2%. And of course, you do have those standouts like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, who did probably do well in school, probably did well in arithmetic and all that stuff. Based off their interviews, they seem to say they did well, and they got into Harvard, which is like probably one of the most rigorous selection processes out of colleges, and so you need very good grades usually to get in. That being said, those people are likely the exceptions rather than the rule. Remember, 2% of the millionaires. It's also worth noting that these authors focus on high net worth individuals rather than high earners. There is a big difference, which I highly recommend reading The Millionaire Next Door to really understand, because it changes your thinking on personal finance. But the basic idea is there's people who earn a lot, but then they spend a lot as well. And those people never develop the habits to live below their means in order to actually invest and build something that's worth a lot more. Nope, they basically live paycheck to paycheck even though they earn a lot. Now, the other big principle I want to kind of introduce here, and this is one that Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad Poor Dad, he wrote a whole book on, called Why A Students End Up Working for C Students. And really ask yourself, why do you want good grades? This is something that I don't think a lot of people really think about. It's, for me, it's become obvious over the years, but since I've studied successful people for so long, but for many young students, they are going through the motions. They're getting good grades and they don't even really know why. They're just doing it because their parents told them to. So ask yourself why you want to get good grades. And you get an answer. And then ask yourself, why that? And then you get another answer. You keep asking yourself why, it might start to get very deep and philosophical, but it really gets to the core about why we do certain things. And usually it ends up going along the lines of this: oh, my parents want good grades. Well, why does my parents want good grades? Well, because they want me to get into a good college. Well, why should they get you into a good college? Because they assume getting into a good college will get me a good job. Well, why did you want a good job? And it goes on and on until they think that happiness, success comes from this educational background and lifestyle. And I don't agree completely with the people who are on the other side of the fence saying that whole system's broken now. There's no point in going the educational route. Even those people, I think if you dig beneath the layers, like Gary Vaynerchuk, they're not necessarily saying that. They're saying there's certain pathways you can take, and some are no longer working, some are. Certain graduate school level pathways, doctor, lawyer, arguably engineer, you still need to go to school and perform well in school, and then you'll make the money, and hopefully you'll be passionate in it, because that's a whole nother bucket of worms. If you make a lot of money, but you hate it. But generally speaking, you have to think about, what do you actually want? What makes you passionate, and what really fulfills you? And usually through that you can start to move towards things that can bring them more success and happiness and fulfillment, not just this supposed path that could or could not work. Now, once again, this is geared towards more of the people who have been trying and trying, and they still just can't do well in school. What you find is that a lot of millionaires, a large portion, according to these books I mentioned, they are people who are self-employed or business owners. So, might not be a huge surprise to some people because there's other content on the web saying this, but for select people, and I'm not saying everyone has to become an entrepreneur, because you don't. Some people, myself, are not necessarily wired for it, but there are others where that's just a great fit, and they'll do poorly or just okay in school. Maybe they'll be held back a few years. The book actually does a few case studies, including the CEO of Chrysler, who finished high school at 22 because he kept getting held back, and got his bachelor's degree at 27. And he also had all sorts of other issues, learning disabilities, couldn't really read well, horrible handwriting. And despite all these things, he makes a boatload of money, multi-millionaire now. And so just think about that. Richard Branson, dyslexic. Gary Vaynerchuk did very poorly in school, couldn't concentrate. Now he found a passion, he found a love, a talent in business, and he is doing very well financially. Now, of course, money doesn't necessarily mean success. Once again, there's people, I think, who found a medium there where they earn just enough, but they're happy with what they make, that I think oftentimes do better than those miserable people. But maybe you can find something in the middle, or even better. You love your job and it makes a lot of money. But the point being is, you shouldn't just give up hope. You shouldn't just label yourself as a failure, because that can ripple through to a fixed mindset. That goes into other videos I've done on growth mindset versus fixed mindset, and the research done by Carol Dweck on the difference. But the basic idea is, if you start to believe my life is fixed, that I'm screwed for life, that there's no hope, you're going to act like that, and you're just going to continue to live below par. But, if you don't just draw those conclusions just because of this assumption that if you do poorly in school, you do poorly in life, then you can open yourself up to possibility. Maybe that's a self-employed route, entrepreneurial route, who knows? I think I highly recommend reading these books, Millionaire Next Door and The Millionaire Mind, because it also breaks a lot of other myths, such as that you have to be some high-flying entrepreneur of some fancy, fun industry to succeed. No, a vast majority of these millionaires had small businesses in very boring industries. We're talking dry cleaner, we're talking wall repurposer, factory auto parts manufacturer, stuff like that, where there's less competition because it's less flashy. And so you never know. Maybe it's accounting, maybe it's something else, but you can start to find ways of making it work for you. And that's another thing. Your passion doesn't necessarily have to be flashy. So bringing it all the way back to that initial book, the initial point made at the start of this video, to wrap things up, think about it. A 2.93 GPA was the average. Only 2% really had anything worthwhile in terms of like a 4.0 GPA. And a large percentage of these high net worth millionaires, the majority of their grades were not A's, mostly B's. So when you look at all those stats, it tells you, okay, sure, there's maybe still some level that I have to stretch and hit in school, but it doesn't necessarily end, my future potential. Now, with that in mind, what can you do? How can you take a step forward? That doesn't mean you just throw away school. You still need to stretch in a little way, maybe aim for that 3.0, but you can also take a more practical approach. Ask yourself, which of these courses really could have an impact on my potential future success? You won't be completely accurate. You may think you will, but some things may have more impact than you think. And then also ask yourself, what am I passionate about? And just to kind of explain, Steve Jobs did a commencement speech, and he was basically talking about how he was very passionate about this typography class he took in school. At the time, it really had no use, but all of a sudden, years later, it ended up affecting the design and layout of Mac and Microsoft keyboards in a very dramatic way. So passion, of course, focus on courses that stand out. Maybe everything's boring right now, but once you get to college, you got more choices. Maybe that'll open something up. And then you have the whole internet. You have all these online courses, lynda.com. I have courses that you can check out, a link below. And you can start to find little pockets of passion. And then there's the practicality side of it. Sure, maybe calculus and world history are not that useful to you if you want to start a business. But maybe basic math and algebra probably are. You need to add, subtract, and be able to do certain things quickly because accounting is the language of business. So that's one thing. Maybe English is now more important to you because you realize, oh man, business communication skills. I gotta be sending emails, Slacks, reminders. I need to be sending business memos. I have to write copy for ads, for billboards, for social media. Maybe English I got to start to spend more time with. So you'll be able to piece apart where should you focus more for the real world and where should you focus less. And you're not going to be completely accurate because you might think, English not so useful, or world history not so useful. And then maybe years later, you become some type of history museum curator for, documentaries or something. Who knows? So it's kind of a mixture of passion and practicality, but you'll get close enough, and I think that'll get you far. So thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments below your story, your experience. Maybe you gave up on school and then this video changed your mind, or maybe it didn't change anything and you're already on that pathway. Let me know your story and give any tips to other fellow people watching, aspiring students, so that they can succeed as well. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.